What's up guys? Lots of you have asked how to do this Darksaber effect, so I decided to show you. Here I recorded my good partner Joel Adam, who was nice enough to act with the remote Darksaber. And what you're gonna need is After Effects. And here you can just download the files that I've included in the description. This is the beautiful Joel. You just import it like this and pull it down on this icon. Boom! That's all you need. And looking through this here, you can see he picks this up, this little remote thing that I put there, so he had something to tether it to. And let's get the... let's just get away from this. Let's get a 3D model of this Darksaber. Now, I find this one, usually I model things myself, but I really like the one that this guy made. It was very few polygons, which means it's low file size, loads quick. So let's just download that. And you can download it in the normal format, FBX. That shouldn't be a problem right there. Boom. Extract that and you'll get two folders. Let's go in here and take a look at the texture. And this is really why I chose this, because it's so beautiful, this texture that the guy made. And yeah, it looks pretty nice. Let's just go ahead and extract this file. And you can just delete that. And here's the 3D model. It's an FBX file. You can convert this online, but I'm going to do it in Cinema 4D. So importing it there and just saving it as a C4D file, Darksaber. And there you go. Now let's go into a new layer, new solid. Let's call this the Darksaber 3D. And on the layer, we're going to add an effect called Video Copilot Element. Element 3D is like one of the greatest 3D programs for After Effects. So let's go in here and import the Darksaber. Click OK, and there we go. Beautiful. Now there's just a couple of things here I'd like to change just for my own personal preference. I think this metal part could be a little more shiny. I like shiny things. Let's go into presets and choose that chromish sort of material there. Just pull it, land it on top. That looks pretty good. And let's hit OK. Now, this is a little bit too big. It happens. You have a saber that's too big. You can just resize it. And it's probably a little too small. And if you hit rotation in here, you can rotate it so that it fits the right position and the right rotation. I don't know much about sabers, but that looks, that's probably right. And let's just, on the Z-axis, let's make that land and position it right around there. That's probably a little bit bigger. That's just fine. Now, if I just solo this, you'll note that nothing's really happening. And that's because that this texture isn't animated. We want it to be animated. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to go back into the texture, pull it into our composition. Beautiful. And we're going to want to pre-compose this. So you're going to select it, go Layer, Pre-compose, and just hit OK. Let's double click, and now we're inside. And we want to get some animated things on top of this so that it looks lively. So let's just go ahead and add a new solid layer. Let's call that a fractal coolness. Hit Effect, go into Noise, and Fractal Noise. Now this probably doesn't look like a lot, but the potential of fractals is basically unlimited. You can just play around with some settings, the complexity, the scale, and all these kinds of things. Let's just go ahead and change the mode, the type. And I like the way that this sort of spliny thing looks. Let's keep it at that. And let's play around with the brightness and contrast. Maybe set that down a little darker. Yeah. So we've got those nice sort of spliny things. And yeah, we might want to scale that down. Looks good. Now, this isn't really doing anything either, but you see there's an evolution thing here that actually makes it evolve. And there's like infinite possibilities you can do with this. So let's go ahead and keyframe the evolution of this. And let's say we start at the beginning, we hit this keyframe button. We're going to move over to the end of this composition, and we're just going to move forward here. Let's say this is how much it should move throughout the whole thing. Now if we play back, you can tell it just animates, and that's gorgeous. I like that. Now we also want it to move down, so let's go ahead and keyframe the turbulence offset. Start there and go to the end and just move the Y coordinate down. Or I guess you could even do up, but I'm going to keep it at down. Let's look at that. That looks pretty good. All right. Now, we want this to be over the blade part. So let's just make this invisible and click on the pen tool. Remember to have the new fractal coolness layer selected. And we're just going to click out of bounds there. Click right here, here, maybe like there, and one more time here. And finish it off. It looks pretty good. Now if we re-enable it, it should only show up where our mask is. Already looking better. But I want to kind of keep that cool texture this guy made. I can't stress enough how cool that was. So let's go ahead and set this to screen. Might change it to add later. And that looks pretty good. We might even want to add a little bit more life to it. So let's go ahead and Control D on the layer that's duplicating it. And change the random seed around a little bit. Maybe even change the scale. Make it smaller. Now you've got these two layers, much more lively. That's great. Yeah, we can go back now and let's disable this layer here. Just don't want to see that. Good. Now, nothing's happened. But that's because we haven't told Element 3D that we want to use the animated texture. So let's go ahead and choose custom layers inside of Element 3D. It's down here. It's a custom texture mask. We're just going to choose the first one and click on the name, which is the Darksaber texture. That looks pretty good. We're going to go up into the scene settings. And we're going to locate the blade, which out of these materials is that last one, I think. Yep. So click on that. Now you see under diffuse, you have the texture. Click on that. And click up here to change the texture to our custom layer 1. And as soon as you click, it's loaded in. Looks pretty good. Let's click OK and OK again. And because Element 3D is so cool, it's already animating. We might even want to make that a little bit brighter. Looks pretty good, but I want it to just be a little bit more bright. So let's go back in here and change them from screen to add. And that's just that much brighter. Usually I would probably double this up, but for now I'm going to leave it here. Now let's re-enable Joel here. And let's start animating where the Darksaber is going to be. That looks good. Let's keyframe the position and the rotations. But you know what? I've noticed here that the anchor point here is quite high up. We want it to animate where the hilt is. So if we just, oh, there it is, anchor point. If we just move the anchor point here down to the hilt, that'll make it much easier to animate. There you go. And then up here, let's go ahead and position it upwards so that it's on the hilt. And when we click OK, yeah, we're going to just need to reposition this. No problem. Now you're just going to want to go through the whole thing and keyframe the movement of the lightsaber, or the Darksaber. There you go. And you'll see when he moves his hands, the rotation sort of follows along. We're going to want to go there. Let's go back here and let's just reset it. Change the rotation. I'm just being a little haphazard with this. You don't have to be too specific. You can always make this better or even track it. But for now, I'm just going to make it simple and quick. Just follow along there. Go down here. And right there. And now around here, he's going to move it up. And it's going to sort of change perspective. So we want to match that. And we can do that by changing some of the other rotation parameters. Oh, first let's make this work. That's a little too fast. There you go. Now, we want to keyframe the X, Y, and Z so that when he goes up, it follows along. So, oh, that's the wrong one. Let's go by the X there. Or, wait. Oh, yeah, there it is. You're going to want to play around with this as much as you want. I'm just getting a basic estimate here. Let's just keep going here. Follow along. There we go. Move it down. Oh, there you go. And, okay, so now that we've got this, you'll notice it doesn't look perfect, but it doesn't actually need to. Good. We're going to make this look great. And the way that we're going to make this look better is by, first of all, when you've double-clicked it, having his hand over there with the rotoscoping tool. You can alt-click there and just remove the part of the hand and let this track through. My recorder skipped here, but this is pretty straightforward. When it's done rotoscoping, you'll have the hand by itself. And if you look through, that's just the hand there. I will duplicate that layer and we'll put it on top of the Darksaber. There you go. Now you'll notice that it's sitting on top of the Darksaber. That's that layer, the Darksaber underneath, and Joel underneath. That's looking good. Let us make sure that this works the way that it needs to, meaning usually we want to add a saber layer. But to do that, we want to auto-trace the Darksaber. The way that we do that is by going to Layer, Auto Trace. But see what happens if we do that now. See, it goes ahead and it traces the whole thing. We don't want that to happen. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to split the saber and the hilt into two separate layers. Luckily, this is really easy to do. There's different ways of doing it, but to start with, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to disable the material that has the saber. I'm going to click OK. Now you're going to want to click on the layer that has the Darksaber and click Control-D or Command-D if on Mac to duplicate. Go back in and now do the opposite. Enable the Darksaber blade and remove the rest. And now you have the layers, the blade and the hilt in two different layers. Also, we want it to shoot out when he activates it. So what we're going to do there is we're actually going to animate the beginning of it. So if I move it down like this, let's just play around here. Let's go to this point, enable it, and let's say by here is when it's activated. Let's go ahead and remove any keyframe before. Let's go to the point where it starts to shoot out. And let's just move it down. Let's select it here and just move it right down there. Very nice. All right, so let's just fix that around there. Move it up. Looks pretty good. And boom. Okay, now let's rename these to blade and hilt. And go ahead and add a layer to occlude the part of the saber that hasn't shown up yet. So we're gonna put that there. Gonna maybe rename it. It's not a very good name, but that's fine. Then I'm gonna choose the mask tool, the pen tool, and mask out the parts of the saber I don't want in the beginning. Actually, let's maybe move this up a little bit more. There you go. Now we're gonna wanna set the blade to a track matte, meaning anything that's above it will remove it in the first layer above it. We're gonna change the track matte to alpha inverted matte, remove under blade. And now you'll notice that, okay, it's not perfect. So we're gonna move ahead and keyframe by clicking U so that the mask comes out. We're gonna keyframe the beginning, go forward a little bit, and then we're gonna shift click on the mask to change the points individually and move them over. Let's go to the middle here and see if it fits there as well. Just move that down. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Boom. And let's shorten the layer so that it ends there. Very good. Okay, that's what that looks like. Now, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna auto trace that layer like we talked about. So we're gonna choose our blade layer and not the other layer. Then we're gonna go to layer, auto trace, make sure that it says the work area and not the current frame. And it's gonna take a little while. Boom, there you go. Now that we have the auto trace layer, we're gonna wanna add a saber effect to it. And this is a free plugin from Video Copilot. So you're just gonna go into Effects, Video Copilot, and Saber. You'll notice that it doesn't really show up where the mask is, but we can change that by going to Custom or Customize and choose the core type and make it a layer mask. There we go. Now this is just on a black background, so we're gonna wanna change the render settings right there. Make that transparent. And now I think I'm gonna put that underneath the blade. There. Now this doesn't look that great. We're gonna change it to screen and we're gonna make a background layer, click layer solid and make it a black layer, put it down in the bottom. That looks much better. But remember the saber is not blue, so let's change it to white or black, it's the same. And playing that through, that does have a pretty cool look to it already, but usually what characterizes the Darksaber is the flickering. So let's go into flicker and play around with it a little bit, see what that looks like. It's just about playing with the speed and the amount, the intensity. That looks pretty good. There you go. Now let's go to the same layer and click on it and Control D to duplicate. Let's change around the seeds to a different random seed here so it's not the same. And let us go to distortion. And this is where we're going to do that electrical sort of energetic effect. We're going to want to raise the distortion in the background. That's a little much. We might want to scale that down later. Let's go to the core and there we go. Now this looks a little too wispy, waspy, smoky. So we're going to change the type to energy. That looks much better. I think the halo in the background is way too big. So let's go back down to the other layers and just scale that down up here. Let's do the same for the layer underneath. There you go, much better. Now let's, wow, that looks good. Let's duplicate the energetic layer, put it on top. And we're gonna wanna play around with the settings so that it's not the same. So let's change the seed, the distortion seeds. That looks different. And let's just play around, make it a little bit thinner maybe, but still maintain that coolness. That's already looking great. Now it's starting to slow down a little bit because we have so many effects on. If you have a potato computer, that's very fine. Let's maybe play a bit more with this. Now let's add some motion blur because that's really going to make things look better. And here now I'm just going to try to make things look a little bit more manicured. Let's fade in like that. We just hit T to animate the keyframes of the opacity. Let's make Joel a little darker. Add a background, maybe a gradient. Let's maybe add some curves here. Could be a little bit more blue. It's not really blue, but for this shot, I really like it to look a little bit more contrasty and bluish. Let's fix Joel's skin tone, maybe add a lens flare. This is what it looks like. And after some color grading and sound effects, this is what it looks like. Alright, so thank you very much for watching. If you want more tutorials in the future, hit me up. If you're in doubt about anything, have any questions, please hit me up and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, and like for more. Oh my, I do think you should subscribe.
Or deal with the consequences.